In closed session, the board took up items 1 through 5. On item number 2, Director Landsgaard recused himself, and the board took no reportable action on any item.
We're now going into open session. Madam Secretary.
This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the board on any item not on the agenda regarding district business. State law prohibits the district from taking any action on items not on the agenda unless authorized under section 54954.2 sub B of the government code, and your matter may be referred to the general manager. An individual may also address the board on any agenda item at the time the matter is discussed and prior to board consideration or action. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. Your time will start when you approach the podium, and you will be given a 30-second warning before your time expires. If you choose to ask a question during this time, any response by the board will not extend your time. Questions may be referred to the general manager, to be answered at a later time after the meeting. In order to allow for a single order meeting and allow each speaker the ability to address the board, disruptions from the audience will not be tolerated and you will be asked to leave. We appreciate your cooperation in this democratic process.
Anyone from the public like to speak on non-agenda items? Okay, we're going to go to M1, approve January 19, 2016 regular board meeting. Motion to approve. Second.
Just like there one, just have like one.
Yeah.
What about item?
No, I mean, you're talking minutes. The minutes to not, yeah, they don't reflect that I recused myself from the item in the closed session. Reflected it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's, I mean, that we really, my motion is to recommend the minutes as stated.
Did you hear what he said?
Take a second.
Take a second.
Take that amended motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The first motion you've been.
Okay. Consent calendar. CC1 approved checks, vouchers, register. From January 12, 2016 to January 25, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have discussion on it.
You can ask for discussion now if you like. Any discussion if not called for the vote.
Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, NB1 nominated a representative for Rosamond Advisory Board. We'll do discussions on it. Discussion.
Oh, no, we have, it looks like we have a presentation from this.
Good evening. Edwards Air Force Base officials are seeking a volunteer to represent the Rosamond community on the Restoration Advisory Board. The RAB facilitates two-way communication between the public and those responsible for environmental cleanup at Edwards Air Force Base. Volunteer representatives are not expected to be environmental experts. Terms of service are 2 years, and the deadline for the application was on January 19th. Before you have a list of 4 names of applicants to be considered for appointment.
Okay, do we know anything more? I mean, I personally know 2 of these people for sure. I don't know about the other 2, but I know that we're not concerned.
Applications were sent to you via email.
Oh, okay. Just recently or what?
No, they were sent last week.
I didn't receive them.
They were attached to the agenda.
Okay.
I nominate William Gaddis to that position.
Second.
Oh.
And Mr. Gaddis is the one that's currently in. Rad likes working with him. He's been doing it for quite a while. I think he's one of Alan's deacons at his church. Yeah. And he's been, from my understanding from talking to them, it's difficult to get people to actually do the work and actually show up. But we wanted to, even though he was the appointee, we wanted to go through the
Yeah, and I talked to Bill about that too. He says, you know, anybody else is interested, he's happy to see more interest, obviously, for the community. Rudolph Burgess, I know personally, he's a good guy, and he actually works Saturdays as well. Would also be a good choice. And of course, this is for the main person, right? The alternate will remain Les Uhazy of the Alabama College.
Yes. You've already appointed Les as the alternate.
Any seconds from Bill?
Yeah, you already have said it.
What we do? Who's second?
We don't have a second yet,
I think we did.
I thought-
Director
I thought-
Glennan,
Yeah.
did you have a second?
Did you second?
No.
No,
No,
Director
no,
Glennan made a motion for Gaddis.
And,
I don't think we heard
Mr.
a second.
Glennan is the one who made the motion.
Correct.
I'll second it.
Somebody down here.
Okay, Mr. Wallis seconds.
Yeah, you said.
Is there any other nominations? Is that it? So go ahead and call for the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? MD2 mid-year budget review. Any good from that?
Well, Mr. President and Directors. That's a loud one, isn't it? You know, good news, it's always good to look at a budget and have some good news. As I told you before, since I came on in September, I tasked staff, every one of us, to look at everything that we do, and if we can change the way that we do things to save resources, which ultimately saves money, and if we can find out more efficient ways to do things to save money, and if we can actually save money, that I will take open door. Anybody has a good idea, let's talk about it. And I have to congratulate staff, and especially Brad. As a finance director, he's probably the best I've worked with. I've worked with a lot for many years, and Brad does an amazing job. So he's going to give you the big stuff. I'd just like to catch up on a couple of the little things. But as we talked before, those little things add up. You know, thousands of dollars add up to 10,000. 10,000s add up to hundreds of thousands. So besides, we'll go over the, before on this year's budget, in the CIP, I found a way that we could save $900,000 in doing our own labor, that we didn't have to do it the way it was set up. And so that's already coming into effect. Other than that also, as you know, you have the operational budget also, and we have the CIP. But some of the operational stuff and some of the other CIP is there were some organizations that we felt, and talking to board members, that we're not really getting anything out of. And if it's all our money, and we need to be very judicious with what we join and how we spend money. So we saved another $6,100 there. Overtime. Lizette worked very hard at looking at the front office, and I tasked her with, we have some overtime every week. How can we figure out, can we change people's schedules? Can we change the paradigm on how we do things in the office? She was really great on taking care of that. Saved $1,500 so far. If we keep up the pace, by the end of the year, it's going to be almost $5,000 that we're saving in overtime. Gasoline. I know that the first thing that bugged me is the Chevron stations were a lot higher than a lot of the other gas stations. We're still working on trying to get cards so we can use them in different gas stations, but we by talking to Chevron, they gave us that government group rate. So when we use certain stations, we get a larger discount. So far, we've saved over $600. By the end of the year, we'll probably save a couple $1,000s on gasoline. As you know, when I walked in the office the first day, I have a nice big screen TV in my office. I have cable television. Well, I had cable television. That ended after the first day. And that was only $79 a month, but that adds up to the whole year of us saving about $912. Tank 4, we had a bid out to do some work on Tank 4. We budgeted $42,000. It came in lower, so we saved $15,000 on that project. We did a lot of the work on our own generator. It was a $42,000 budgetary item. We did the work and we saved $31,000 on that project. Well 5, which I was out of, I told the directors here that I was out there with John helping pull that well. And when I say helping, that means I was standing behind the chlorine tank so I didn't get hit with water. Landscaping, as you know, we had some contracting problems. We had some other stuff work that wasn't getting done, but we changed the way we're doing business there also. We've saved $37,000 to this date on landscaping. Communications, I looked at the communications, it's one of the tasks that I was given. We're changing the way we do communications, we're still reaching out to the public, but we changed it and we saved, at the end of the year, we'll end up saving close to $33,000 on that. That's a total of over $131,000 on those costs alone. When it comes to revenue, we found a couple of areas that we weren't getting collected money. One of them was, and on two of those, we brought in some more money, which was around $12,000 we brought in. That was basically sitting there that we should have collected. And so now we've collected that as revenue. And also because of the 2 other water credits that we sold, that was another $20,000. So that's an increase so far in the past. In this part of the budget, we increased by almost $37,000 of revenue brought in. And $20,000 of that is discretionary funds. With that, I'll let Brad come up and give the PowerPoint and give all the, even the bigger numbers. Thanks, Brad.
Good evening, Mr. President, Board of Directors. Thank you, Ron, for those kind words. I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure working with you and for you these couple of last years, and the district has taken some pretty phenomenal steps in its financial position, budgeting procedures, financial reporting, auditing. When I first got here, we weren't doing any of this. We weren't doing mid-years, we weren't doing the full-year budget. The budget was a 3-page spreadsheet that had some pretty generic allocations to it that had led to some pretty significant issues. And it's been a pleasure to work with everybody here, including John Houghton, Ron, the General Manager, Lizette, and all of you. So thank you. I'll apologize, I lost my voice last weekend, so it's just coming back, so forgive me, it's a bit dry. They say to err is human, but to forgive is divine. And in my profession, erring in the side of conservation and conservatism is usually a good thing. So what you have in front of you is a new staff report and budget. Ron and I had a further discussion after the agenda went out this morning. The agenda went out last Friday. We had an additional discussion this morning and realized that some in-house labor had been accounted for twice in the mid-year budget. So I recreated it for you in here. So the original numbers had a $700,000 savings. This one has a $922,000, $100,000 savings. So I applaud Ron and all the staff for that savings. He's done a really phenomenal job coming in here and cleaning house. And it's been, again, a real pleasure to work with him. So Lizette, if you'll go to the first slide. So why do we do a mid-year budget? You guys all are familiar with the final budget that we put together last year. But the final budget it's really a financial plan predicated on the best information available at the time. So when we're putting this together in April and May for your approval in June, we really don't know what December and January are going to look like. You know, economic circumstances can change, interest rates can change, the drought can change, you know, lots of different factors can change. So it's prudent for an organization to go through a mid-year process to change the assumptions, to look at costs that may have been cut. How can we reallocate? Are we going to be getting different things? The pool, for example, is a very good example for this organization where the assumptions have changed. First we weren't going to open the pool, now we are, because we've been able to be prudent in our fiscal matters. The mid-year budget provides an assessment of the district's budget condition in the current fiscal year as compared to the 15-16 final budget based on actual performance. So, as Ron said, he tasked staff with going through each of these line items, their assigned line items, and saying, okay, how much have you spent, how much are you going to spend, how much are you going to need to spend, do you need this money, do you not need this money, do you really need to be spending this money? And we went through and we looked at the actual performance for the first 6 months of the year compared to half of what we budgeted and said, is this rational? Does it make sense? Another thing that the mid-year budget does is it better positions the district for the remainder of the fiscal year. We now have kind of an intermediary plan. So we're not working with data that we prepared in April or May and June. We're dealing with data that we prepared in December and January, which is much more relevant and reliable. And lastly, it prepares a more accurate foundation from which to work. If we were just to prepare a final budget in April and May, and then go back in this April and May, we'd really be dealing with an entire year's worth of data that may have undergone some significant changes. So this puts in place a much better place for us to start here in a couple of months. So overall changes, the total budget savings between the final budget and now or $922,000. As you know, the operating budget was a contentious line item or a topic this year because it was such a large deficit of $708,000. Through Ron's tasking staff to go through, we saved $44,243 in cutting some line items and identifying some additional revenues. That brings us down to about a $665,000 operating loss, better than the 708. The big ticket item here is, much to what Ron was saying, we converted and decided that we could do some of the in-house labor on some of our CIP projects, saving the district $878,000 on our CIP projects. The stream value funds have really no changes. We have Lizette and I have an administrative internal change, shifting between line items of $100 and Fund 4, the LN82 have 0 changes. It's going to stick with what we originally did. Fund 5 is the park. Our revenue change is $44,000. The big ticket item here is CSA 63.5. That should sound familiar to you. That's the CSA in which the park is in the pool. We had some good conversations with the administrators and the accountants over at the county, and we're able to identify that the projection numbers that we used were based on the pool not being opened, and we alerted them that the pool was going to be open. They readjusted those numbers and increased them, and we are going to be getting not $89,000 but $102,000. So that went up significantly, leaving us with some operating cash. I'll get into this in a little bit, but the real upside from a finance perspective is that we don't get this money until July 1st or after June 30th. We have to bill the county for it. But because the pool is open over 2 fiscal years, typically May to August, it leaves us some cash to operate the pool throughout the new fiscal year, which will be great because we can keep it open into the new fiscal year and be solvent, which is really good news. We had to reallocate some of the ad valorem tax over to the park maintenance fund, which is the $59,000, but that's okay because we caught it up with CSA money. Operating expenses changed by $49,000, again, personnel and general administrative costs. So the net change in the park fund actually went down by $4,600, but because we found new revenues and new expenses, the way they were allocated ended up putting us in a better position overall. So I'm happy to report that because of the changes that Ron has identified and the board has decided to do with the pool and the park, that we will be able to open the pool, hire lifeguards, get everybody out there, and have a fun summer out at the park. Lastly is the Park Maintenance Fund. This is what we call our Public Works Fund. It captures all of what John and Brock and their teams are doing. We actually identified a negative change in revenues here because of a reallocation of the 63.5 money. It comes out of one fund into the other because of what we're doing. It's all kind of just on paper, gentlemen. It's an accounting mechanism. It's not cash. The cash is coming in. We're getting more cash to do the operations of the organization. This is really just for your information. The operating expenses went down. We did identify some places that we could eliminate some expenses in this fund, so the net change was that was $9,499, basically $9,500 that we're not going to have in a surplus. I balanced the fund in order to get the park fund in a place of solvency. So, recap. District-wide savings of $922,000. The water fund reserves are saving $116,000. The sewer fund reserves are not only saving $488,000, but we're going to have about $305,000, $307,000 are going to be added to the reserves for a total of $805,000, as we saw in the beginning. The operating budget deficit was reduced from $708 to $664, and the capital budget spending was reduced from $1.7 to $854,000, a total savings of $878,000. And with that, I'll entertain any questions from the board at this time. Yes, sir.
The real question is, how does the pool money work?
Pool money works is we have to send an invoice. The way CSAs are set up with the county is the administrative costs are too burdensome for them to appropriate money to us monthly or quarterly or semi-annually. So what we've set up is, and this is what most CSDs do with CSAs or county CSAs, you bill annually or semi-annually depending on the need. So the pool CSA we bill annually, we bill it basically July 1st for the prior calendar year. And I've spoken with the accountant over at the county several times about what that number's going to be so that I could work with something. Is that mine?
I don't know where it's coming from.
Sorry. I spoke with the accountant over at the county several times to discuss what those numbers would look like so that I could bring to you what I felt comfortable reporting as a good solid number. So we'll get that cash. That fund has enough cash. We can run it into a deficit from an accounting perspective because we accrue those dollars back into the prior fiscal year anyway. So from a financial reporting perspective, the fund will be solvent. From a cash perspective, the fund will be solvent. And from a cash perspective, the district will be solvent as it relates to pool operations.
And when you put net change equals parentheses 4,621, that was a decrease?
Yeah, we were originally projecting about a $64,000 surplus in that fund. We're now projecting about a $59,000 surplus in that fund.
Oh, still have a surplus in the park fund.
Right. Right. Because we identified additional revenues, we increased the expenses because we have the lifeguards and all of the insurance and the water and the chlorine, the chemicals and things. But we offset it by a higher revenue, so that the net change was only $4,600.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, very pleased. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, yeah.
So what you're going to do tonight is what Brad has done is that the stuff that we said that we were going to bring back to you, the pool budget, which he showed you now, and the appropriation of funds to hire lifeguards and the authority. The lifeguards, as you know, a couple meetings ago, we actually put them back onto the comping class. And so they're there. They're actually in the description in the handbook also. So with the approval of this mid-year adjustment, that will also approve the pool budget and us to go forward with hiring the lifeguards and opening up the pool. So we appreciate that. If you have any more questions, we can answer them now or answer them after. Thank you.
All right, adopt resolution 2016-3, approve and adopt the mid-year budget for the fiscal year.
So moved.
Is this a roll, it's not a roll call?
This is a roll call.
Roll call.
Vice President Richard,
Aye.
Director Shingledecker,
Yes.
Director Glennan,
Yes.
President McKay,
Yes.
President Wallis.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you hear me.
I said unanimous. We have to report the vote.
So we can't ask questions about that?
About the vote? Or
No,
about the item?
About this, any questions about this budget?
If there was anyone who wanted to have a public comment or question, they certainly may ask again.
Well, I mean, it wasn't asked for, so I didn't say anything.
We can certainly take public comment now, and then we can retake the vote.
Okay,
I apologize, we missed that step.
Mr. President, ask if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak on that.
Anyone who wants to speak on this?
Yes. My name's Roger Hensley. I have a few, I have a few, in listening to the budget, I'm trying to figure out who's pulling the wool over whose eyes. So I got a question for Byron and Alfred. I mean, we had a budget before, and I heard Brad praise Steve Perez for what he was doing. Now, I'm hearing the opposite, praising Ron for what he's doing. I'm mixed up there, so I'm wondering, did the old board not do something? And so the old board was Alfred and Byron. So I'm trying to figure out who's pulling the wool over whose eyes. There's something is wrong here with this budget. I don't believe it for 1 second. So can anybody answer that?
If you'd like, Mr. President, I can answer one of the questions on the major CIP.
Okay, I'm not going to answer without the law commission.
We can answer the question.
yeah,
This is
I'm
an item
saying-
before you for action.
Yeah, Mr. Hensley, one of the main things, and it's not that somebody did something wrong or the law or whatever, one of the main capital improvement, the $878,000, the district was functioning under a particular aspect of the law, sort of like what they did under the water conservation, and they didn't have to do it the way they were doing it. This is a agency that lays pipe. There was actually case law, and I forgot which case it was. It was a water agency in Northern California that actually sued. And was
I
sued.
understand that completely.
Well, that's where the savings is coming
Oh,
from.
wait. So I'm asking Byron and Alfred, was this district down to the minimum employees to do their job before these other jobs came in?
I'll answer what I think might be answering your question, and I think Brad hinted at it, he just didn't say it. That all of this started, he began all of this when he came here, which was 2 years ago. It was all in the process of coming together, and what you're seeing is the culmination of it that was under Steve and now under Ron. I think that's what you were kind of trying to convey.
Yeah, for some of them, but like I said, the majority.
Except for that,
the CIP stuff, and also for the savings that I listed now, is that all the employees have been working really hard. What Brad was talking about is the way that you do a budget properly. And the budget was not being done properly, and there's still some major mistakes with it. And so, and that's more of a financial thing rather than saving money. It's how you do, there should be, and we're moving towards that way, there should be, like Brad has done now, a mid-year adjustment. There should be a 3-year CIP. There should be at least a 2-year budget. There's all these things of how you account for it, and it makes it smoother. And what Brad has done also is implemented, rules and policies that we spend money in a particular way, and we follow those procedures. The major savings was on the CIP. Like I said, the state law, the agency was functioning under, that you had to put it out for bid. We do not have to put it out for bid, and so that's where the major savings
Okay, so what I want to see is, or what I would like to see, or if you guys have seen it, obviously, if we're doing more work in-house, I don't have a problem with it.
Mhm.
Guess what? Wages should be up, right? The amount going out to the people.
No.
Oh, you're saying that they had all this spare time to go
No.
do these other
If
jobs?
you'd like me to finish,
I'm sorry?
you very acutely mentioned one time when we brought something up about that was just a reallocation of the resources. So when we actually did this, that's exactly what it is.